Hello, my name is Professor Sylvester Henderson. I am CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated. You know, here at Professor for Life Incorporated, we interview many academics, noted academics, as well as noted professionals. And today I am so honored to be able to interview Dr. Jorja Wright-Stokes, Ph.D., who is the Logistics Manager Specialist for the United States Army and an adjunct professor at the University of Charleston in West Virginia. Welcome, Dr. Stokes.
Thank you, Professor Henderson, for such a wonderful introduction.
Listen, Dr. Stokes, could you introduce yourself to the digital media academic world? Please describe your education and your training.
Well, as Professor Henderson stated, I am Dr. Jorja Wright-Stokes, recently married a year ago, so that's my new last name. I am from Huntsville, Alabama, so I'm down here in the southeastern part of the United States. I grew up here. I went to elementary, middle, and high school in Huntsville. Attended college here as well. I got my undergraduate degree in biological sciences from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I got my MBA with a specialization in healthcare management from Florida Tech. And I got my first professional doctorate from the University of Charleston in West Virginia, specializing in executive leadership. And my dissertation topic was understanding how physician executives learn their business strategic leadership skills and transitioning from clinical work into business work. And then last but certainly not least, I got my Ph.D. in healthcare cybersecurity from the Capital Technology University. And I am in what I call a period of transition. So I'm in the period of transitioning from government work fully into academic work so that I can further my research interests and also just give back to the community that I came from.
Wow, what a powerful professional you
Thank you.
have become or are.
Thank
And
you.
that what a wonderful path description of your learning.
Thank
Could
you.
you describe your work and obligations currently as a
Mhm.
logistics management specialist and college professor? Talk about those two
Mhm.
different type of roles.
Mhm. So, similar to your past interview with Dr. Daryl Burrell, that is my mentor. So he helped guide me from when I was a grad student, newly fresh out of undergrad, getting my MBA, and helped me understand the academic space in terms of publishing, scholarly writing, journal articles, and the need for research and conference presentations to further your academic career. So that's how I met Dr. Burrell at a conference doing those things.
Wow.
And I apologize for the background noise. And with that being said, I started with a graduate training fellowship, and it was in Richmond, Virginia. And as that graduate training fellow, it was called Hispanic Serving Health Professions School. They call it HSHPS for short. That was my introduction to the business side of healthcare organizations. So I worked there for nearly a year as a graduate training fellow, and I got to do different rotations with the different offices within the VA hospital. But I fell in love with understanding the workforce. So that was my inspiration for pursuing my doctorate degree in leadership, specifically executive leadership. So after doing rotations in the finance department, in the accounting department, operations management, understanding the clinical side of the house. That was my introduction into seeing how there was so much workforce conflict and how that impacts patient care, quality, and overall productivity of the organization. So even though at that time I didn't have any formal training in logistics, that was a real world introduction into understanding logistics, but in terms of services and workflow and productivity. So after I completed that internship or fellowship in Virginia, I was at a bit of a standstill because when the fellowship ended, it didn't transition into a full-time position immediately. And then at that time, when I was done with the fellowship, I had already graduated with my MBA, and I had was getting ready to start my first year of my doctoral studies at the University of Charleston. So I'm being fully transparent. I got my MBA. It's like I thought I was gonna walk into a job, and that didn't happen immediately. So I was talking with my mentors, Dr. Burrell, and there was a position with the university that he was working at the time, Florida Institute of Technology, where I had also graduated. So I was an alumnus of that institution. And it was an opportunity for me to help them with an office in a different location that wasn't in Florida, it was in Virginia. So I got that position, and that was an opportunity that taught me the business side of higher education. So with that experience, that's how I learned about the workforce hiring, understanding your adjunct faculty, understanding strategic marketing processes to market your educational programs, being vocal and visual in the community and showing the community that I was in Virginia how this office is going to provide services to push them forward. And once I achieved that working there, that opportunity, unfortunately, it came to a close while I was a doctoral student. But even though I was nervous and a little downtrodden about the trajectory of how my career was going to evolve, again, I worked with Dr. Burrell. I managed to graduate from the University of Charleston with my doctorate degree in executive leadership. And I found the opportunity that led to the job that I have now. So I ultimately my path to being a logistics management professional was filled with lots of highs, lows, hills, and valleys. But ultimately, it led me to the profession that I'm working in now. And now I'm entering into a new space where I am open into exploring new opportunities. But that's how I got into the position I am in now. What I do as a logistics management specialist, one of the positions I held, I was an inventory specialist. So I was in charge of managing $1.5 million worth of Army missile equipment. So I managed the equipment from what we call cradle to grave. So once the Army as an organization procures the equipment, I manage the equipment coming into our supply chain system. I manage the maintenance of the equipment if it breaks down and what type of maintenance programs I need to refer the equipment into. I also manage disposal of equipment that can no longer be used. So I did that for about 2 to 3 years around the pandemic timeframe. So from 2020 to about 2023. And then I got another position still within the government. And now I work with an organization that manages the calibration equipment for the Army's major end items such as aircrafts, tanks, missiles. I manage the equipment that calibrates the scales and the calibration equipment to check measurement of the missiles and things of that nature. So now I manage that type of equipment. And that includes also cradle to grave mentality of once we get the equipment into the supply chain management, also maintenance and induction of assisting other Army organizations, so other directorates, and help them calibrate their equipment as well, like the Air Force and the National Guard, the Marines, and things of that nature. So that's what I do. That's what I work on the professional side.
Well, you know what, Dr. Stokes, it seems that not only are you really very passionate about academics, but you are learning a great skill, and you're teaching me a lot about the military just as you are speaking. Having said that, how has your military employment shaped your leadership philosophy?
Oh, it has impacted my leadership philosophy greatly. I being completely civilian, because I'm not military, I don't have a army background, and I was never truly a part of the
Okay.
military services. But coming in, and just also even to add another layer of degree of separation, I'm also a first generation immigrant. So I am from the Bahamas. My family immigrated here to the United States.
Wow.
My father wanted to go to Oakwood University because he had the calling to be a pastor. And so that's what brought us from the islands to Alabama. And then for me, I traveled up and down the eastern side of the United States because of my education.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's what brought me here. And how it has shaped my perspective on leadership is I've learned from interacting with many military professionals and also veteran civilian employees. They make leadership, it's not so conceptual for them. It's very tangible, and they have gotten it to a point where they can measure leadership skill and aptitude metrics, I feel, a little better than the civilian side has been able to do so. They pay attention to things like what they call time and grade. So the time that you have been in a particular, if you are a military service member, a time that you've held a particular rank. And if you are a civilian, a time that you've been in a particular grade, like your grade salary, your GS level. So if you've been in a rank, they have the time frame. For example, you're only supposed to be a first lieutenant for 2 years. And then after that, you need to hit all of the metrics within being a first lieutenant so that you can move on to the next rank and become a second lieutenant, and then move on up to become a captain, and then move on up to become a major, all the way up the rank to colonel, full-bird colonel, and things of that nature. And then with the civilian side of the house, it's a little similar, but the rank is different. So as long as you are hitting your milestones at, for example, a GS7. I started my career at a GS7, and once I have that, you only need to have a minimum time and grade of a year. So once you hit your year and you have successfully completed an annual appraisal and learned how to do your job productively, now you can move on and apply for the next position. That could be a GS11, and so on and so forth. So I have noticed they're very specific with time and experience, and hasn't really been room for a lot of wiggle room compared to outside of the federal sector, where you're working at, I'll just say company F. You're working at company F and you're coming newly graduated with an MBA.
Okay.
And you feel, well, hey, I have an MBA and I went to Dartmouth, or I went to business school at Harvard, or I went to MIT. I should come in here and be making six salaries, even though you don't have any time and grade at that organization. So that is something that I have noticed is leadership is very specific. It is concrete. You can touch it. There are metrics, there are timelines, and not too much gray area compared to being outside of the federal sector. That's
So,
something that I've noticed.
so it's very clearly defined.
Very clearly defined.
Wow.
And you have a certain level of leadership aptitude and skills that you should reach before you get to the next level.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dr. Stokes, how do you balance the discipline and structure of governmental employment with the flexibility required in academic environments?
I will be honest and transparent with you. It was easier before becoming a parent. When I've been an adjunct professor for 5 years,
Okay.
and being the adjunct professor that I have been, I have taught in all formats. So I've taught at Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University here in Huntsville, Alabama. We call it A&M for short, or AAMU. Go Bulldogs. And they're in the classroom. So I have taught in the classroom. I have taught online, synchronous classes where I've had to meet with my University of Charleston students once a week, and we meet in a platform like this, WebEx, or Collaborate through Blackboard. I've also taught at the University of Phoenix. I've taught doctoral students where they've had asynchronous classes. So I don't meet with them weekly or monthly. I meet with them based on their need, and we can set up and schedule a time to discuss their dissertation topic and their research questions and their methodologies and things of that nature. But balancing teaching and my professional position that I have now, I will admit that it's easier if it is online, because it grants you the opportunity. Sometimes I have worked late before. So if you're working late, you can just come home and get on your computer and be able to teach your students, as opposed to driving from work to the classroom to go teach. Yeah.
So the instructional methodology is not only is it flexible, but for you it's very helpful.
Very helpful. Very helpful. Especially having a little one.
What advice would you give young women considering a career with the Army? You know, as a civilian in a sense.
Oh yeah. I would say that this career, it has been very fulfilling. It teaches you a plethora of skills that you can use outside of the government. So everything that I have learned about inventory management, forecasting inventory, supply chain, logistics, strategic thinking, and solving issues so that your Army service members get their inventory in a timely manner. All of that is important, and those are things that you can carry outside of the federal government. So I will say that those are important skills. If you would like to expand your career, it's very valuable, or invaluable actually. And so yeah, I would encourage women to pursue it for sure.
Okay, very very good. In your experience, how has the Army employment, or Army in general, evolved in terms of diversity, inclusion, and support for service members pursuing higher education? Do you know of different people in the Army who enlisted workers or worker bees who really are pursuing their education while being in the Army? And if so, what are your thoughts about it?
I have witnessed mostly enlisted service members. I've witnessed them pursue their higher education a few years after they have served within their military rank. So we call them non-commissioned officers, so NCOs. Let's say, for example, a student comes straight out of high school at the age of 18 and wants to enlist in the Army. I've seen where they have worked their Army positions and have moved up the ranks for maybe about 2 to 3 years and then pursue college or higher education and use the benefits that they have earned to pay for them to go to school. So those are things that I've witnessed in terms of the diversity of military professionals pursuing higher education. That tends to be the timeline that I personally have seen. I will admit, administration, we are in a time of flux, so it's changing right now. A lot of dynamic changes, and so hindsight would be 2020. So me reflecting maybe a year or two from now on how diverse members of the military and the civilian world, how that has evolved in terms of them pursuing higher degrees. That's something that I could probably discuss in 27. Because right now there've been a lot of changes, even with standards within the military side of the house, with recruiting standards and also retaining that workforce. There's some changes that have been going on. But prior to this year, from what I have seen, I have just seen that NCOs will enter into the military and then they'll use their benefits and pursue higher education after they have served for some time.
Which is very important because in society today, higher education is really very, very critical. And education, I think one of the things that employment or challenges that employment is doing is allowing Americans to redefine what really is education, what is higher education. But having said that, as a professor at the University of Charleston, how do you integrate your governmental employment into your teaching methods or curriculum?
Well, having a professional doctorate and also being an adjunct professor that is still currently working and not retired, this is something that I discuss with my students during every meeting. Something that I always pull from them is I want to hear your experiences. I want to hear your journey, because I actually watched this in a past podcast that you had, that it's important to be able to solve problems once you graduate. And so let's discuss some of the organizational issues that you are experiencing within your positions now. Sometimes we can add some academic theories to them, but let's talk about it and come up with a methodical, systematic way to resolve those issues. And my students, because the University of Charleston is an Army-friendly school, I have talked with students that are military-affiliated green suiters, and so they can understand the line of work that I'm in, and I can understand the line of work that they're in. So that's one thing that we have in common. Another thing is I understand the organizations that they're working at or the units that they're working at. And there's a lot of knowledge sharing, lots of knowledge sharing. And so my hope is that when they enter my class, that they're taking all of the knowledge and experiences that we are all discussing when we meet weekly on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, and be able to use that moving forward and being leaders in their own sphere of influence to impact positive change.
Wow. Well, I bet you your students love you to death, Dr. Stokes.
I love them. I see University of Charleston because those are my undergrads. Those are my babies. And at this year, I think, just doing roughly some quick math, I've been teaching there for 5 years. I have 6 classes a year and roughly 20 students. So 20 times 6, that's about 120 students. So 120 times 5.
That's right.
Oh, at least over nearly 700 students that I've taught at the
That's
University of
wonderful.
Charleston undergrad.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. And
yeah.
being a young professional and working with young students is
Hmm.
a benefit, because I'm sure many of the students say, "Wow, if Dr. Stokes can do it, I could do it."
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I hope they feel inspired. My journey academically has been one, like we talked earlier, lots of twists and curves, lots of hills and valleys, and even from a personal standpoint, a little bit of tragedy. When I was in undergrad at UAH, my ultimate goal, I wanted to be a clinician because I love healthcare, and that's why a lot of my degrees always have a healthcare slant to it. Loved biology, loved medicine, loved learning about the human body. And so those things were very important to me. But once I was at UAH, unfortunately, there was a tragic shooting that occurred, and the professors that I worked so closely with, unfortunately, they are deceased now due to the hands of another faculty member,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's crazy how I missed the actual incident by about 40 minutes because I left the building that it happened 40 minutes prior to that event happening. And I would be remiss to say that experience didn't change or pivot the trajectory of my career, because I was a junior. So I had 1 year left to go into medical school. So that was a very pivotal year. That's the year when you and your advisor and other professors that you work with, and I was working in the lab at the time that happened, but that's the year that you need to start gathering your packet so that you can start applying to medical schools and starting to study for your MCAT. And so when that happened, the teachers that didn't make it through that experience, those were the teachers that I had already built a relationship with from the age of 18. So I was already working with them, working in their lab, helping with some experiments. Have discussed with them many office hour visits so that they can help me craft this packet to go to medical school. And I lost them in just like that in an instant. And so with that happening, I thank God that I met Dr. Daryl Burrell and his other colleagues, because that's something that's important for us as African American academics and professionals, is mentorship. Being able to have wisdom and some guidance on how to navigate all the different things that can happen, but from discrimination in the workplace, discrimination from an academic standpoint, and just understanding strategy on how you can better yourself. And so I am so grateful to my community of academic professionals that have helped guide me so that I can be a positive change agent, even though I experienced something so negative and tragic. Um, it has helped shape me in terms of my leadership. I'm very empathetic to my students and all the different things that they've experienced. And it's also given me the fire to move forward, because the professors that passed, their life's work wasn't in vain. And I hope that their life's work in terms of academics has lived in me. I've internalized it, and I'm using my skill sets to help my students moving forward.
Wow. That is, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing such a sensitive story and reality, unfortunately. But my prayers will go out to their families. You know, continued prayers for their families. Dr. Stokes, how do you foster critical thinking and civic responsibility in your classroom, especially given your background working and with having information about healthcare and working with in a governmental agency?
hmm Oh, thank you for that question. From an academic standpoint and with my students, I foster critical thinking. We do interactive activities. And one interactive activity, I'm sure you may have heard of it before. It's an activity in which you have the participants pretend that they are in a hypothetical scenario.
Yes, sir.
And for me, I have my students pretend that we are lost at sea. So we were perhaps on a yacht enjoying our vacation, and something happened. Well, a storm happened, and now the boat doesn't work. And so we're lost at sea, and we have a list of 15 items, and you can only pick 5 of those resources to help you until help comes and assist you. And even from a quick glance, you might say, well, that scenario has absolutely nothing to do with business or healthcare or supply chain management or logistics. But in actuality, I liken the activity to the sea that you are lost in. That is our macro environment. So that's whatever industry you're in. That is healthcare. That is logistics. That is any organizational industry that you could be working in. And the storm is something that has that has disrupted the flow. So in healthcare, that's COVID, even though COVID has affected us in a multitude of areas. For me in supply chain, that could be shortages of inventory, and now military units are unable to get the equipment that they need. How do we navigate that? Higher education, another disruptor, that could be AI. So now you have your students that are using Chat GPT, and there's something else called Claude and something called Site.io. I mean, all of these different technologies that are disrupting the flow of how things used to be. So now in higher ed, it's no longer students sitting for hours and studying in study groups. Now they are spitting out the answers to all of your assignments by using AI. Or with COVID, it is the ER is completely filled with lots of patients who have all these strange symptoms and not enough doctors and not enough nurses to care for them, and trying to figure out how do we care for all of these COVID patients. Some are worse than others, need to be intubated. We don't have enough resources. Banking, financial industry, that disruptor could be cryptocurrency, and it's not backed against gold bars and the dollar. So how is it that we are getting these people that have all this money in cryptocurrency and they want it to be transferred into actual physical money? So we have all these disruptors going on. And so that's what I ask my students when it comes to that lost at sea activity. What methodical, systematic way of thinking can we use to use the resources we have now, the 5 resources that you can use off this list to help yourself survive while you're going through this storm? And I think about that in all industries. So higher ed leaders, what resources can you use now to help you survive this storm? With students decline in admissions, what resources can you use to help either admissions go up, make tuition go down, to entice students to want to pursue higher ed? In healthcare, what technology or resources are available to reduce the workload on the clinicians that we have now? And how can we encourage the next generation to pursue a career in healthcare, so that we wouldn't be met with the ratio of too many patients and not enough healthcare workers? So that is how I foster critical thinking, is by removing yourself from the problem that you're currently sitting in, and let's move ourselves into a different hypothetical scenario. We have a list of resources, and how can we be creative in our thought process to use those resources to resolve complex problems and issues that we are facing right now.
Real life concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jorja Wright-Stokes, I got just one more question for you. And this is, could you share any thoughts and ideas? Do you have any thoughts or ideas you would like to share with our digital media community? You've talked so passionately about not only your career, but in terms of your education, your love for healthcare, your love for your work, and all the knowledge that you learned from working for the United States Army as a governmental employee. Are there any other final thoughts you would like to share?
Thank you for that question, Professor Henderson. The main thing that I would like to share is, especially for all of us as leaders, no matter what industry you're in, let it be healthcare, finance, education, housing, real estate. It doesn't matter. We all need to come together and communicate on methods that we can use to benefit us as the demographic. And I mean here in the United States, because we are undergoing a transition right now, and I think we need all of the creative thought processes, all of the professional experiences, and all of the wisdom to come together so that we can really push our community forward in multiple ways. Um, my journey from undergrad and just being an immigrant and seeing so many different things that have occurred, especially within healthcare as a patient and a family to um, senior citizen parents that are ailing. There are just so many um, issues as a community that we face. And if we can just use our skill sets, our resources, and really come together, I think it would exponentially improve our quality of life and where we are now, especially with all of the changes that are occurring. I just more unity, more coming together, more brainstorming, more creativity, more support, so that we can all be successful.
Wow. Dr. Stokes, you have been wonderful.
Thank
You
you.
have just been wonderful. You please share a wonderful hug to your husband, your child, your newborn, and also give a wonderful shout out of applause to Dr. Daryl Norman Burrell, because you know he has been such a an advocate for all of you in terms of your professional achievements and your growth. You know,
Mhm.
I'm here in California. He's down back in, I think, the Pennsylvania area or somewhere in
Oh,
Virginia,
yeah.
somewhere down in there, but he's in another part of the world. But one of the things that he has demonstrated has been true love and empathetic leadership. And he has certainly sent me a jewel, a list of many professionals and academics who are just a jewel. And you are one of the jewels that he has sent. I wish you nothing but great success in all that you do. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for visiting Professor for Life Incorporated. And do have a
Thank
God
you.
blessed day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
All right,
you.
then. Bye bye now.